Hi, this is Ian. I wanted to say something today about keeping silence. There are four qualities for a magician that I'm sure many people have heard of. Uh, to know, to dare, to will, and keep silence. Or as Barden put it, knowledge, will, courage, and silence. But I thought I'd talk a little bit about silence because it's one of the things that gets the worst rap in some circles. It's also really necessary. First off, I'm going to dispose of the idea of dealing with oaths. If you've taken a magical oath, my opinion is keep it, no matter what. Don't take a magical oath unless you plan on keeping it for life. If you take one, keep it for life. There are lots of reasons for that, including potential loss of your magical authority if you break the oaths. So, yeah, just don't do it. If you're not certain of something, just don't take a magical oath to it. So, we'll not even go further into that. So, silence has a bunch of different potential purposes that are legitimate. One of them is when you're trying to communicate with someone. If you're trying to communicate with someone, say you've got 30 years experience at something, as far as concepts and things like that go, and you're trying to explain some concepts about this magical stuff, the person you're trying to explain it to has say 2 or 3 years experience. So their experience is here, your experience is way up here. So what happens is you're trying to give the person down here information from up here, and you're trying to convey a certain concept or a thought picture to them. But this is as far as their conception can go. Otherwise it's pulling, but it can't really go up and conceive of things properly. So if you're trying to pull a person up to see this point and they can't reach it because they don't have enough experience, enough background, their image is going to go like this. The more you pull and try to convey to them the correct image of what you're saying, the image is going to go sideways like this, because it can't go up, and you're stretching their brain harder and harder, so the image will go this way, and you'll end up with something upside down and inside out. So if a person doesn't have the proper context for something, then you have just effectively lied to that person by giving them information which, true from your point of view, is not understandable or comprehensible from theirs. And that is not to say that anybody should have to keep their knowledge secret from everybody, because that's not what I'm saying. But don't tell people that if you're going to convey an impression of something to somebody and you want them to see it more or less with the image you're trying to give them of it, then what you're going to need to do is either take the image down to their level and give them only as much as they can understand, or you're going to need to bring them up to your level, which means applying all the context so they can understand the image properly. And this is one of the real reasons for not talking about a lot of stuff prematurely to people, because for sure it's easy to get the wrong concept, and if your mind just can't conceive of it, you're going to come up with some sort of twisted concept which bears little relation to the one that somebody's trying to give you. That's assuming, this has nothing to do with you or me or anybody directly, but just as a general thing. So don't try to pull people above the level they're ready for unless you're ready to bring them up to that level. But this is not about that so much. This is about silence. But there's one legitimate version of keeping silence, because if you don't, you've basically lied to the person. And there are a few other reasons. You want to have internal silence, and this is very related to stillness. Silence and stillness aren't quite the same. You can have stillness and you'll be silent, but you can be silent without having stillness. And I consider stillness as stilling everything. The whole movement, inside and outside, the movement of the world, movement of you. You're so deep inside, everything's stopped, nothing's moving. And that's stillness. If thoughts are still bouncing around in your head, that's still movement. If you focus on a sound that you hear outside the window, that's movement again. So if you can't be still and silent without, on all levels, including mentally, then you can't really properly perceive anything. If what you're trying to perceive is moving, and you're moving around with it, all you get is a few intersections where you see things properly. If you can stop, then you become the reference by which everything moving passes by you, so that you can appreciate it properly without being caught up in all your own stuff. So this goes for everyday life, ideally, which, a person would be able to keep this silent perspective all the time as long as they wanted to. And then you can judge things from a calmer perspective, from an outside perspective. You could see an overview of the things instead of being caught up in all the things transforming around you. So there's another aspect to think about as far as keeping silence goes. And it occurred to me to wonder about the elements for this. To know, to will, to dare, and to keep silence seem to be oriented towards the four elements. But it's not completely obvious because silence is so closely related to stillness. And I originally used to think of water as silence, the watery element, as representing silence and stillness and darkness. And while it's kind of correct, it's not really that still. Take a look at the ocean. You can see how easily sensitive it is and prone to movement from waves, anything. So water, by its characteristic of stillness, can become very sensitive to all sorts of ripples and things. So it can be very sensitive. But if you want to be silent and keep some of the crap out of you that keeps coming in from all sides, I feel that the earth element is actually a better one to focus on, because which is more still, a mountain or the ocean? I mean, you can hear the ocean crash against the shore. Mountains generally don't make much sound unless they're having an earthquake or a volcano. So it seems to me that stillness is much more associated with the earth element. And that's one of the first things that is supposed to be attained by someone meditating, is to have enough stillness to meditate properly. In the Orient, a lot of times they use the lotus position to be conducive to stillness. They start by stilling the body, and then the emotions, and then the mind. Because if you still one part of yourself, it feeds through the different planes. If you make your mind still, it will help to make your emotions still. If you make your emotions still, it will help to make your mind still, and vice versa. And if you help your body to be still, it'll help keep your emotions and your mind still. So they had lots of asanas and things. So stillness is considered very important, because you can't properly perceive anything unless you're doing it from a point of stillness. So there's lots of reasons why silence is necessary. And another one that's particularly important in some cases is not talking about experiences you've undergone until you've digested them spiritually. If you go through an experience and then you give it away to everybody immediately, you've just used up a lot of energy of that experience that could have been going internally for your self-development, and you've given it to people. Now, that's a nice thing to do for the people because they can undoubtedly benefit from it. But if you do it too soon and give away all that internal energy, then you're taking something away from yourself. So I think the best thing to do is to wait a while. Many religions, my wife believes 3 days is adequate for her. Myself, I'd usually rather keep quiet about something for a couple of weeks or so, just to let it be digested and let the energy be absorbed, depending on how big a deal it is, how much it affects you. You need to be still internally, let this energy come in, digest it until your body is done dealing with it, making what energetic changes it needs to do to adjust, and then you can talk about things without disturbing it. But if you give all that energy away before you've had time to adjust to it, you may lose more or less of it, depending. And if you get some negative feedback from people who discourages it, it may partially dissipate some of your energy. So it's beneficial to keep things silent about yourself to a certain extent if you want to spiritually digest them and get the best out of them. And it's been a habit and always been said by the old gurus and sages of India that if you break silence about something, the guru gets mad and won't give you any more development. But they're not talking about the physical guru, they're talking about your internal teacher. So it's said that if you just blab about all the stuff, all the internal stuff your internal teacher tells you, then basically it will not function for you because you'll have given away all the energy and the changes it could have made. So make sure certain things are kept silent, just not to profane them, as Western magicians would put it. Don't profane these things, which means that another thing that would mean was don't talk about it to someone who will not appreciate what you're saying because they are not at the same level of development or something like that. So you're not lying to them because they're, different levels again. Once you've got it digested and the energy is settled into you, then you can talk about it without, causing any issues. So there's that also. I'm sure if we went further and further along, we could think of lots of other reasons for stillness and silence. There's no lack of them. So it shouldn't get a bad rap. Instead, it should get a good rap. As long as you're not keeping silence to maintain power over somebody, by not giving them power or powerful information or whatever. So you're not doing it just to maintain your authority and power, but through trying to help people understand truthfully. So I think that's about it for now. I thought it would be interesting to say something about silence, since that's the one that there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about, or people jump on the bandwagon and you're keeping secrets from me, so I don't want to blah. And you should help people with magical development and magical information as much as you can according to your understanding of it. You just need to be careful that you don't give people an improper understanding of it by coming from the wrong level. So these things are okay to talk about as long as you're not giving people a wrong misunderstanding. And if you make sure that whoever you talk to about it has a right misunderstanding, then you shouldn't be giving away your power or letting it be abused. Thought forms are fragile. Other people's energy can mix with yours. Their thought forms about a thing can affect you. In fact, if you want to really talk about it, what Siofra and I are doing here is a little bit of a risk, because I can assure you that I definitely feel the psychic energy of people, thinking about us in general, not specific details, just a general energy, and that can either help you or hinder you. And so it's a good thing to try to be in harmony with your audience and keep things on a harmonious level, since their thought forms can affect you some way. And of course that depends on individuals. Everything is entirely individual on this, but I am aware of the general thought forms and things. So I appreciate all your positive thought forms. And that's also another good thing to think about as far as keeping silence, because keeping silence can mean keeping silence within your own head, your own thought forms, in the sense of not letting thought forms go out. Now, I have had a couple of experiences in which, if you're just, some people would say in the right state, and some people would say in the wrong state. In my case, it was just in the wrong state, where your thought forms can just make things happen. So you want to discipline your thoughts so you don't think thoughts at bad people or to them or about them, because part of what that will do is tend to affect them in a negative fashion, whether or not they're aware of it. And some people are so earthy and dense that they just don't get affected by other people's thought forms much. But some people that are more airy or more fluent in these things might affect them more and more. And being silent and keeping your own thoughts to yourself, your own feelings and things, that doesn't mean you should compress any of them or restrict your feelings. If you need to get them out, you can get them out, but don't put them into, I would recommend, the people, unless somebody really deserves it. I don't know, then it's a judgment call. But to be sure you don't do yourself any karmic harm by thinking bad to other people. Any thoughts you have like that, you might drain out into the earth, put them in a rock and throw them away. In other words, get rid of them in some way so that they don't affect anybody negatively. And that's easier said than done. I do try to do that. It's certainly, I do not have it down to a science. But it's something I try to do, and I find generally that my mood and my health and everything improves a bit from doing that. So keep yourself disciplined. And I guess that would be, in a way, another aspect of not really keeping silence, but just maintaining. And you'll maintain a lot more steady center and be better able to deal with things. So there's a lot to think about keeping silence. So I think I'll leave it there for now. And I might go in and do the other 3 of the 4, to will, to dare, etc., at a future time. I thought I'd end this right now with another tasty morsel from Coyote. And I have 2 of them here. I guess the one I will give for this video, I believe, is a new one that I have not given yet. And it is The Endless Change of the Universe. The endless change creates stability. And the endless change creates stability because of a balance. And these are two opposites. Stability and movement is like you've seen a gyroscope. You pull the string on it and then a spinning thing, and it'll stand on your hand, or you could balance it on a piece of string as long as it's spinning. It's that kind of idea that everything changing around you creates stability. The infinite change of the universe creates stability because it's actually all balanced in the Akasha, or the Tao, if you want to call it the Tao, because they talk about that specifically, that specific aspect. So something to ponder on is how the endless change causes stability outside of you and inside of you, and how that's related, because we were just talking about stillness, which can also be very stable, like a giant block of earth, a mountain. They're pretty stable in general. But then you can get stability from the endless change if it's balanced. And theoretically, in the Akasha, everything is balanced. Everything and their opposites exist there all at the same time, in a fashion. So there we go. There's a tasty morsel for today. I have a bunch more from Coyote, which hopefully I will get to in future videos. Thank you for watching. Please, I appreciate any questions or any comments or anything that you would like to hear about that you think would be worthy of me making a video on. Please tell me, and I will try to get this done more often and make more videos more often. I don't know how I'll succeed, but I'll give it a shot. Blessed be.